They whisper behind your back because your silence is louder than their truth. And that truth is uncomfortable. Spirit warriors, have you ever noticed how people seem to fidget around you, become overly talkative or strangely quiet without you even opening your mouth? That's not paranoia, it's presence. When you carry a stillness grounded in spiritual awareness, you disrupt the noise of superficiality. People aren't reacting to your words, they're reacting to your energy. Take Elijah, not the prophet, but a modern-day chosen one. He didn't argue, explain, or defend. He simply observed. Yet his presence pierced through masks. That's because real power doesn't have to announce itself. In a world addicted to attention, the ones who don't seek it become the loudest mystery. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon. It's called the spotlight effect. People project their own insecurities onto those who appear self-assured and unbothered. Elijah became a mirror, unintentionally exposing what others tried to hide. And like all mirrors, not everyone liked their reflection. That's why conversations stall when you enter a room. That's why you're the topic of hushed tones. Not because you did something wrong, but because your aura is doing something right. Spiritually, silence has always been powerful. The Bible tells us that Jesus, when accused, opened not his mouth, Isaiah 53:7. Yet his presence shook kings and crowds. You're walking that same path. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's discernment. And that disturbs those who can't hide behind noise. As the poet Rumi once said, the quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. That includes hearing the fear behind their smiles and the envy behind their gossip. So if people whisper behind your back, take it as confirmation. They feel your depth. They sense your discernment. And they fear your insight. Not because you're judging, but because your spirit recognizes what their flesh tries to conceal. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to be a light. And light doesn't argue with darkness. It just shines. Stay until the end of this video, chosen ones, as we reveal the 7 deep truths about why your presence speaks louder than words ever could. This isn't just about being different. It's about. Let's begin. Point 1, your silence is a mirror. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. In a world that rewards loud voices, instant opinions, and attention-seeking behaviors, choosing not to speak much can feel like rebellion, but make no mistake, silence, especially when paired with confidence, is a form of power that speaks volumes. It unsettles people, not because it says something about you, but because it reflects everything about them. When you don't say much, people start filling in the blanks with their own insecurities, assumptions, and projections. Your quiet nature becomes a mirror. They can't hide behind surface-level chatter, distractions, or drama. In that stillness, they're left alone with their own thoughts, and often those thoughts are not flattering. This is why your silence makes them uneasy. It isn't just silence. It's confrontation without a word. You haven't accused, judged, or criticized, yet your mere presence invites reflection. And reflection, for those who aren't ready to face themselves, is deeply uncomfortable. This phenomenon has psychological roots. According to Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist, we all have a shadow, the part of ourselves we'd rather not acknowledge. When someone embodies traits we suppress or fear in ourselves, like calmness, self-assuredness, or discipline, it can trigger projection. That means people unconsciously attribute their own flaws, fears, or desires to someone else. So if your silence makes them feel judged, it's likely because they're already judging themselves. Moreover, your quiet confidence strips them of an easy target. Talkative people often reveal too much, flaws, doubts, inconsistencies, giving others something to latch onto, criticize, or gossip about. But when you choose to remain reserved and speak only when necessary, you rob them of ammunition. They can't pick apart your words because there aren't many. They can't analyze your weaknesses because you haven't displayed them. And so, left with nothing to dissect, they turn inward. And that internal scrutiny is what truly bothers them. This is also why people often start talking more around quiet individuals. Their chatter becomes a defense mechanism, a way to drown out their own inner discomfort. They may mock you, question your motives, or accuse you of arrogance, not because you've actually done anything wrong, but because they're grappling with their own unease. Your silence has made them vulnerable, and instead of sitting with that discomfort, they deflect it outward. But here's where your power truly shines. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to explain your silence or justify your stillness because of that calm demeanor. It's not emptiness, it's control. It signals that you're listening, watching, and absorbing everything without reacting emotionally. And that unnerves people who thrive on control, chaos, or attention. It makes them feel like they've lost the upper hand, even if no battle has been declared. Interestingly, studies have shown that people who speak less often command more respect in group settings. According to research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, individuals who contribute fewer but more thoughtful statements are perceived as more intelligent and authoritative than those who dominate the conversation. Your silence doesn't shrink your presence, it amplifies it. Like a pause in music that heightens anticipation, your restraint gives weight to your words when you finally do speak. Ultimately, your silence is a filter. It separates the superficial from the sincere. Those who are uncomfortable with it might not be ready for the depth you bring, and that's okay. You're not here to entertain their egos. You're here to live in truth, dignity, and intentionality. So let them talk. Let them squirm. Let them sit in their own reflection while you remain anchored in your quiet power. Because silence doesn't mean you're empty. It means you're full of self-awareness, wisdom, and purpose. Point 2, you operate on a different frequency. While others are busy reacting to chaos, gossiping about what they don't understand and chasing likes, followers, and fleeting validation, you're in a different frequency altogether, tuned into spirit. There's a stillness about you, a calm confidence that doesn't require performance. While they speak just to be heard, you listen. While they scramble for attention, you wait for alignment. You don't need to scream to be noticed. Your energy speaks before you do. And yes, they feel it. They may not admit it, but the room shifts when you walk in. Conversations change, glances are exchanged, and walls go up. Why? Because you don't play the game. You read the room like an open book, catching tones, body language, and the subtle tension most people miss. While others only see faces, you sense intentions. You feel lies in your bones, pick up on hidden motives without needing proof, and often know someone's true feelings before they say a word. It's not paranoia, it's discernment. That sacred inner radar that God gave you isn't just intuition, it's spiritual intelligence. In psychology, there's something called interpersonal sensitivity, the ability to pick up on unspoken emotional cues. Empaths and spiritually attuned individuals score high on this, and it's not fantasy. Studies from institutions like Harvard and Yale have shown that people who are emotionally and spiritually aware often excel at something called thin slicing, making quick, accurate judgments based on minimal information. So when you feel something is off with someone, or walk into a room and sense tension, you're not being dramatic. Your spirit is simply tuned into frequencies others have numbed themselves to ignore. Now here's the thing. When people don't understand how you just know things, they get uncomfortable. It challenges their masks. Instead of asking how you're so aware, they project. They call it luck, call you weird or too quiet, or claim you think you're better than everyone. No, you're not arrogant, you're awake. And that's what unsettles them. You're not reacting, you're observing. You're not getting caught up in distractions because you've trained your focus on truth and energy. They gossip to fill the silence, but you use silence to hear God. They chase popularity, but you chase purpose. They assume your stillness is passivity, but it's power. They confuse your silence for ignorance, but you're often 5 steps ahead, discerning what they can't even name. And when the truth finally comes to light, as it always does, they're left stunned, wondering how you knew all along. It's not magic, it's not mind reading, it's discernment. It's what happens when your inner world is more developed than your outer persona. You've done the inner work, you've sat with discomfort, learned to tell the difference between impulse and insight, and built a relationship with the divine. You know when to speak, when to move, and when to let the noise pass you by. That's a wisdom you don't find in gossip circles or social clout. It's found in sacred silence, divine whispers, and painful truths. And while they try to define you by what they can't understand, let them. They don't need to get it. You weren't called to be understood by the masses. You were chosen to walk in clarity and conviction. Stay tuned in. Let them whisper, let them watch. Just don't let them shake your frequency. Because while they operate off reaction, you operate off revelation. And that, more than anything, is what sets you apart. Point 3. Your energy exposes hidden darkness. You don't even have to speak. Your light agitates the darkness in others. Your presence alone is enough to shift atmospheres, to stir something in the unseen, and to make those carrying hidden motives or unresolved wounds feel exposed. This isn't because you're arrogant or threatening. It's because light always reveals what is hidden. It illuminates what was once concealed in shadow. And the truth is, not everyone is ready to face what your presence makes visible within them. Throughout history and even across spiritual traditions, light has always symbolized truth, purity, wisdom, and divine presence. In scientific terms, light exposes what the eye couldn't see in darkness. Spiritually, you carry that same effect. Your energy acts like a spiritual spotlight. You don't have to call someone out for their mask to start slipping. Simply being authentic, walking in integrity, and radiating inner peace can cause others to confront their inner chaos. Think of it this way. When someone has been sitting in a dark room and you suddenly flip the light on, the first reaction isn't appreciation. It's discomfort. They squint, shield their eyes, or maybe even lash out. It's the same when you walk into spaces with a soul that's been refined by pain, growth, and self-awareness. Those who are still operating in pretense, manipulation, or denial will feel that jolt. It's not personal. It's spiritual. You mirror back to them everything they've been hiding from, and that makes you a walking revelation. Have you ever noticed how some people are standoffish or cold with you for no clear reason? Or how they misread your confidence as arrogance, your silence as judgment, or your standards as rejection? That's not about you, that's their shadows, trying to defend themselves, because your light doesn't just brighten, it exposes. And exposure is uncomfortable for people who've spent years perfecting a performance. In psychology, this is known as projection. People unconsciously attribute their own unwanted feelings, insecurities, or traits to others. So when someone feels off around you, it's often because they're projecting their inner discomfort onto your presence. They're not really upset with you, they're unsettled by what you awaken in them. But here's the catch. Your job is not to dim down to make others feel comfortable. Your job is to keep shining. Not in a boastful, look-at-me way, but in a grounded, purpose-driven way. The world doesn't need more shadows. It needs more light-bearers who aren't afraid to walk into rooms and be felt before they're even heard. This also explains why some people will try to distance themselves from you, compete with you, or even attack you unprovoked. They sense something divine, something unshakable in you, and that terrifies the parts of them that still live in fear, deception, or ego. Demons, whether literal or metaphorical, don't tremble at noise, they tremble at authority. And spiritual authority isn't loud, it's not flashy, it's the quiet, unbothered presence of someone who knows who they are and whose they are. In biblical terms, light is often associated with divine presence. In John 1:5 it says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." That's you. The very fact that some people squirm in your presence is confirmation that your light is doing its job. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means you're walking with purpose. So next time someone acts strange around you, tries to provoke you, or labels you something you're not, don't get discouraged. Understand that your light just activated their darkness. Their discomfort is not your burden. Let them wrestle with it. Let them figure it out. Meanwhile, you continue to rise. Continue to show up with grace, truth, and authenticity. You weren't sent to blend in, you were sent to shift atmospheres. And remember this, stars don't compete with darkness, they simply shine. Point 4, you hold mysteries they can't decipher. Ever noticed how you walk into a room and the energy shifts? People look at you a little longer and listen a little harder, and sometimes they don't even know why. It's not your fashion, it's not your fame, it's the mystery, the invisible depth behind your eyes. Because, dear Earth Angel, if you're a chosen one, you are multidimensional. You're not just living in this world, you're also deeply connected to higher realms. While others speak only of what they know, you speak only when you must, because what you carry is far too sacred for casual conversation. There's a reason people are drawn to you. It's not just charisma, it's spiritual gravity. Chosen ones move through life like living paradoxes, deeply human, yet divinely connected. You might laugh, joke, and blend in, but there's always that quiet knowing underneath the surface. You don't always reveal your knowledge, not because you're hiding, but because you know better. Not everyone is ready to receive what you've been given. You're like a walking library of sacred wisdom, encoded with truths passed through lifetimes, whispered through dreams, visions, and divine downloads. Science might call it intuition. Psychology might label it high emotional intelligence or deep introspection. But you know it's something much more, a spiritual inheritance. Dreams for you are not random images, they're messages from the beyond. Blueprints of future events, warnings about people's intentions, and confirmations from the divine. Your visions don't just reveal personal insight, they sometimes reveal collective truths, ancestral stories, and even glimpses of past and future timelines. You might wake up with chills, memories that feel older than you, or a sense of clarity about things no one ever taught you. That's because you were born remembering things others have forgotten. And let's talk about those divine downloads, those random aha moments that come during a walk, a shower, or in the middle of silence. Suddenly you understand a problem no one else could figure out. You solve situations with wisdom beyond your years. These downloads come from your higher self, your angels, or the divine source. You're a receiver of truths, like spiritual Wi-Fi, always connected, always listening. You may not even fully understand how or why you know what you know. But when the moment comes to act, the right words and actions just flow through you. Your mystery isn't a mask, it's a safeguard. Because let's be real, the world isn't always kind to the spiritually gifted. People fear what they can't understand. They question what they can't explain. That's why chosen ones learn early on to keep certain truths sacred. Not everyone deserves access to your depth. Some people only want to know you so they can control or copy you. But no matter how close they get, they'll never fully crack the code because what you carry, it's encoded in your soul, not your speech. People may accuse you of being secretive, aloof, or too quiet. But what they call silence is really spiritual discernment. You know that pearls shouldn't be thrown before swine. You sense who's sincere and who's just nosy. Some are curious, others are karmic tests in disguise. But you've mastered the art of smiling, listening, and withholding the jewels of your knowing until the right moment. Your power isn't loud, but it's undeniable. And the irony, the very thing that makes you different is what makes you magnetic. You're a mystery people can't solve, a story still unfolding. You walk in rooms not trying to be seen, but you always are. Why? Because light like yours can't be dimmed. It vibrates in frequencies that other souls feel long before they understand. Some will admire you, some will resent you, but all will remember you. So stay grounded, stay wise, and stay hidden where necessary. Your multidimensional nature is a sacred design. You don't owe anyone full access to your knowing. You're not here to explain the unexplainable. You're here to be it. And that is more powerful than words will ever be. Point 5. You're a vessel for divine wisdom. There's a reason you feel set apart, a little different, a little more in tune than most. It's because the Most High, God, the Source, the Divine, whatever name speaks to your spirit, sees something in you that can't be faked, bought, or taught. You've been chosen not for show, not for noise, but for wisdom, depth, and discernment. When the Most High pours into you, it's not random, it's intentional. You are a vessel, one that can be trusted, not to spill sacred knowledge recklessly, not to run your mouth for clout or validation. That kind of trust, that's earned through experience, character, and spiritual integrity. In today's world of oversharing and non-stop broadcasting, true discretion is rare, but you operate differently. You've learned the power of silence. The art of knowing when to speak is a gift, but the wisdom to stay silent, that's spiritual maturity. Not everyone deserves access to the depths of your mind, your revelations, or the divine downloads you receive. Some things are sacred, some knowledge is meant to be guarded, not because you're secretive, but because timing, purpose, and audience matter. This ability to hold divine truth close, to protect what's holy, gives you an aura of mystery. People notice it even if they can't explain it. You walk into a room and your energy speaks before you do. They sense you carry something they don't understand. Peace in chaos, clarity in confusion, strength in stillness. And in a world obsessed with being loud, your quiet confidence speaks volumes. It unsettles the prideful, intrigues the wise, and often intimidates the insecure. Psychologically, this dynamic taps into what's called the information gap theory. When people perceive that you know something they don't, it creates curiosity, even admiration. That's why some people are drawn to you, hanging on your words, watching how you move. They sense that you operate on a frequency they haven't tuned into yet. And it's not because you're showing off, it's because you've aligned yourself with divine timing, discernment, and purpose. Even spiritually, the Bible teaches us in Proverbs 17:28, even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Silence is not emptiness. It is often full of revelation, and the Most High pours into those who know how to handle that weight responsibly. You're not out here chasing followers or clapping back for validation. You understand that divine secrets are not entertainment, they're assignments, and that makes you rare. People feel this. That's why they study you, ask questions they don't even know how to form, or feel either inspired or intimidated in your presence. You don't need to oversell who you are because you carry a presence. That's power, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands it. You've probably had moments where others underestimated you because you weren't loud, boastful, or flashy. But over time, your consistency, your insight, and your unshakable calm revealed something deeper. You weren't silent because you had nothing to say. You were silent because you were absorbing, listening, and discerning. You were waiting on divine instruction, and now that you speak, it's with clarity, weight, and truth. So if you ever feel like you're holding too much within, remember it's because you've been entrusted. Not everything needs to be said. Not every gem needs to be dropped. Sometimes the power is in knowing, not showing. You are a vault of divine wisdom, a lighthouse in a storm, and a carrier of spiritual insight. Stay grounded, stay silent when led to, and speak only when the time is divine. That's why the Most High keeps pouring into you, because you don't just hear, you listen. You don't just speak, you serve. You don't just receive, you protect. And that in a noisy, distracted, ego-driven world is what makes you truly powerful. Point 6. Your discernment makes liars uncomfortable. You ever noticed how some people get uncomfortable around you for no obvious reason? It's not because you said something wrong. It's not because of your clothes, your tone, or your timing. It's because you see them. You catch what they think they're hiding. You catch lies without needing receipts. You sense betrayal before it's even had a chance to fully bloom. And when someone's intentions don't match their carefully chosen words, your inner alarms go off like a 5-alarm fire in the soul. That's not paranoia, that's intuition, spiritual discernment, the unseen gift that makes others uneasy because deep down they know, I can't fool this one. Science has even tried to explain this phenomenon. Studies in psychology suggest that people who are highly emotionally intelligent or empathetic have a heightened ability to detect micro-expressions and vocal tones, which gives them a subconscious edge in reading intentions. But what the studies can't fully capture is what happens when your discernment goes beyond the psychological and into the spiritual. Some call it gut instinct, others call it divine wisdom. Either way, it's real and it's powerful. That power, however, makes you a threat to people who live in deceit. You don't even have to call them out. Your presence alone makes them feel exposed. And so, what do they do when they can't manipulate you? They gossip, they twist narratives, they whisper just loud enough to damage your name, but never loud enough to face you directly. It's not because you're wrong, it's because you're right. They know that if others begin to see what you see, their whole little house of cards could collapse. So, they go into survival mode, discredit you, distract others, and distort the truth. It's a defense mechanism, not just against exposure, but against accountability. But here's the kicker. Your gift isn't just about seeing what's wrong in people. It's also about rising above it. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Why? Because your track record speaks louder than their rumors. People will start noticing that the ones who throw dirt on your name tend to be the same ones who had something to hide. And guess what? That truth always finds its way to the light. The irony is, the more they try to smear your name, the more they reveal about themselves. You become the mirror they didn't ask for, but desperately needed. And mirrors, they don't lie. Let them run their mouths. Let them rally their gossip circles. It's all just noise. Meanwhile, you continue rising. You continue evolving. You keep building, because your purpose doesn't pause for their projections. And one day, those same people will realize that you were never the problem. You were the one they couldn't manipulate, the one who saw through them, the one who, instead of getting bitter, got better. And in that realization, they'll feel what they tried to project onto you, exposed, embarrassed, and defeated, not by your actions, but by your authenticity. So protect your gift, honor it. You don't need revenge. Let their regret be their teacher. Let your growth be your response. Because when you're walking in truth, you don't need to chase validation. Your presence alone demands it. Point 7, you carry divine timing. You speak when heaven says now. And your timing, chosen one, is divine, not rushed, not delayed. There's something deeply powerful about a person who doesn't flinch under pressure to react, defend, or compete for attention. You've probably noticed that people talk about your silence. They whisper, they speculate, they question your motives. Why aren't you speaking up? Why aren't you clapping back? Why aren't you proving your point? What they don't understand is that your silence isn't weakness. It's alignment. It's not fear. It's faith. We live in a noisy world, a world that equates speed with success, noise with power, and constant motion with influence. But ancient wisdom and science tells a different story. Psychologically, those who pause before speaking tend to command more respect. Studies in communication and leadership show that people who speak less often but deliver powerful, thoughtful words when they do speak are perceived as more intelligent, more authoritative, and more grounded. You, chosen one, are living proof of this principle. You don't move with the crowd, you move with heaven's whisper. In the natural, silence is often seen as passive, but in the spiritual, silence is preparation. Silence is listening. Silence is the sacred pause between heaven's command and your earthly action. Think about nature for a second. The seed is quiet before the sprout, the arrow is still before it's released, and the sky is dark before the sun rises. Your silence is not the absence of power, it's the storing of it. It's the tension before the breakthrough. Your restraint unnerves people because they're used to impulsiveness, they're used to quick responses and knee-jerk reactions, but your self-control, your discernment, and your ability to wait on divine timing, that sets you apart. This kind of silence comes from intimacy with the divine. It means you've trained your spirit to listen to the rhythm of something higher than emotion or ego. You've chosen not to fight every battle, not to speak in every argument, not to reveal every move. And that unsettles people, because to them silence is a mystery, and mysteries make people uncomfortable. But heaven has taught you that sometimes the most powerful sound is no sound at all. You've learned that what's done in silence is often the most anointed. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes that says, "There is a time to be silent and a time to speak." That's not just poetic, it's prophetic. Your timing is sacred. It's not dictated by popularity, pressure, or pride. You wait because you know, you speak because you've heard, and when heaven finally says now, your words carry weight, your actions shake foundations, and your presence becomes undeniable. So let them talk. Let them be confused by your stillness. What they see as delay is divine calibration. What they see as hesitation is heaven holding back the arrow for maximum impact. One day they'll understand that you weren't inactive, you were in alignment, you weren't passive, you were positioned. Because when a chosen one speaks, mountains move, not because they shouted, but because they waited. Spirit warriors, let them talk, let them wonder, let them gossip. Because while they speak, you soar. Your quiet knowing is not for show, it's your armor. You were chosen not to speak everything, but to embody everything. And remember, the ones who know the most often say the least. Keep walking in divine awareness, stay in alignment, and never dim your gift to make others comfortable. Your silence is sacred. And your knowing, it's unstoppable. Watch this again when the whispers get louder, so you'll remember they're only talking because your silence told the truth.